The story starts with a kid named Will Stanton. Today, his school let out for Christmas break, but Will wasn't really into celebrating with his big family. As soon as he stepped out of school, he spotted this super pretty girl wearing a red scarf. Boom! He fell for her right then and there. Anyway, he rushed onto the bus, and pretty soon, she hopped on too. His brothers started teasing him about being so shy since he always kept to himself and didn't even have any friends. Then his little sister Gwen was like, "Hey, go talk to her before she gets off." But bad luck, she got off at the next stop. Thing is, she left her scarf behind. Will grabbed it, but before he could give it back, the bus took off. So Will and his brothers and sister were headed home when out of nowhere, this guy named Leon pulled his car right in front of them. Leon worked for Miss Graythorne, the fancy royal mistress of the town. He invited Will and his whole family to a Christmas party at the palace. When Will finally got home, he saw his older brother Max was back for the holidays too. Max had already claimed Will's room, so now Will had to crash in the storeroom. All in all, Will had 5 older brothers and 1 little sister. His dad seems like kind of a wild guy. Anyway, their dad, John, landed a lecturer job in this town, so that's why they moved here. Plus, his mom was a housewife who totally adored her huge family. That night, they all sat down for dinner, and John asked Max where he's headed for college. Max just said, "I'm still figuring it out." After that, all the boys at the table started picking on Will because he couldn't talk to that girl on the bus earlier. The next day, 2 farmers, Dawson and George, showed up with a Christmas tree for the family. They were pumped to see Will and wished him a happy birthday. Then they mentioned a storm was coming that night, even though the sky was totally clear. Later, Will's family gave him a bunch of presents. Most of them were kind of lame, but he was stoked about Gwen's gift, since she was the only one who really put some thought into it. He opened the box. Inside was a cool little watch. Gwen put it on his wrist herself and told him to make a wish. So Will wished it'd snow there too. That night he woke up and saw snow falling outside. He was over the moon, but it got so cold he had to shut the windows. Then all of a sudden his hands got crazy strong, like even a light touch almost broke the windows. Next day, Will was at a bus stop when he noticed a bunch of crows landing on a nearby tree. The bus rolled up soon after, and he hopped on, heading to the mall. He was actually there to grab a Christmas gift for Gwen. Before long, he found this gorgeous pendant and bought it for her. But just as he was about to leave the mall, 2 cops grabbed him. They accused him of stealing the pendant and dragged him off for questioning. When they got to a room, Will knew something was off. The lights kept flickering, and the cops' faces were changing over and over. They demanded he tell them about some sign, but Will had no clue what they meant. Then bam, their real form showed up, and they tried to jump him. Will shoved them off easy and bolted, realizing for the first time how strong he was. Those 2 cops were all over him after that, but he slipped out of their trap. He still couldn't wrap his head around what was going on or why they were after him. He tried telling his dad about the weird stuff happening, but his dad and the rest of the family just brushed him off. That evening, Will and his family showed up at the palace for the Christmas party. Those same 2 farmers came up to him and asked if he was having fun. Then Will spotted that girl from the bus again, but right then, James stepped in and started chatting her up. That ticked Will off big time, so he grabbed his coat and stormed out. Meanwhile, Leon and Miss Graythorne were wondering if they should tell Will about his destiny. Over here, Will was walking alone in the woods when some guy on a horse with his dog started chasing him. Will took off to save himself, but the guy's horse was fast and caught up to him. That dude asked about the sign too, but Will still didn't know what he was talking about. Just then, Leon and Miss Graythorne showed up out of nowhere and told the rider to back off. The rider started to leave, but as he went, he said he'd get his powers back in a few days, and when he returned, no one would survive. Leon and his crew saw Will standing there, totally freaked out, so they used magic to zap him back in time to some ancient world. They told him he's this old-school warrior meant to save the world's light. They said hundreds of years ago, there was this big fight between light and darkness at a place called the Great Hall. Light won, but it couldn't wipe out darkness for good. Now to finish it off, Will's got to find 6 magical signs to beat the evil forces once and for all. They told him his powers woke up on his birthday, and that's when he probably started seeing the signs. But pretty soon, that rider felt his own powers kicking in too. And other people can sense his growing strength, like that rider who came to kill him. Will still didn't get why he had these powers, so Leon explained that old stories say he's a seeker, the seventh son of a seventh son. They had this ancient book called the Book of Grammar that explained how to spot the signs, and only Will could read it. When he heard that, Will laughed. 'Cause he only had 5 brothers and was his parents' 6th kid, not the 7th. He told them they picked the wrong guy. He started to walk away, but Leon and his crew said he can't just ditch his fate. Right then, Will got a flash of the future where darkness had taken over everything. That scared the heck out of him, and next thing he knew, he was on a road about to get into an accident. Somehow he made it home and did some more digging. Then he asked his dad some questions since he's a physics professor. He wanted to know if light could beat darkness. John just said, "Why are you stressing over deep stuff like that? Chill out, man. You're young. Have some fun." Later, Will was in the storeroom when he opened a drawer and slipped, falling and hurting his leg. His mom, Mary, called a doctor to patch him up. Will was about to grab a drink, but when he heard the doctor's voice, he realized it wasn't a doctor. It was that rider again, here with his dogs to take him out. The rider sent Mary to another room to grab stuff so he could talk to Will alone. He touched Will's leg and healed it right up, saying if Will spilled about the sign, he could ask for anything. Then he used magic to make Will's leg hurt like crazy and threatened that if he teamed up with the ancient warriors, he'd kill Will and his family. When Mary came back, the rider left Will in pain and said it'd take a few more days to heal. After that, Will went back to the storeroom and found a picture of 2 twins. He took it to Mary, and she told him he had a twin brother named Tom. When Will and Tom were just 2 weeks old, a huge storm hit, and both babies started crying. Mary grabbed Will and went downstairs, telling John to bring Tom. John was working on his thesis, so he checked Tom's room a minute later, but Tom was gone. They searched everywhere, but after that day, they never found him. That messed John up so bad he quit his thesis and fell into depression. Hearing all this, Will realized the world was in serious danger, so he decided to join the ancient warriors. He read the book and found out he had all kinds of powers, like spotting light signs, moving stuff with his mind, jumping through time, and having insane strength. He could even shoot fire from his hands if he wanted, but he really wanted to fly like Superman. And since he couldn't, he got a little bummed. Anyway, Leon taught him how to use his powers. That's when Will saw the first sign was in the pendant he gave Gwen. Then he spotted the second one. But he'd have to go back in time with the warriors to get it. When they hit this weird world, an old lady attacked them with poison snakes that grabbed everyone fast. Will broke free with his strength, nabbed the second sign, and got his team back to the church. Talking to Leon, he learned his ancestor Thomas made these magical signs. Leon said the 6th sign was never found because it was never hidden, but since Will's family, he could track it down. That night, the writer met some shady guy who said his dark powers were growing every day. Meanwhile, Will had 2 signs already, so he was getting stronger too. The writer told the guy to bring him all the signs and promised a reward. Over here, Will was having dinner with his family when James showed up with Maggie, the girl Will's been into from the start. When he found out they were a thing now, it hit him hard. Later, Maggie came over and told him she's got powers too. She made a sign out of salt grains to show him. After dinner, Will showed her what he could do. Then he asked why she's with James and if she's with the warriors. She said he shouldn't sweat the small stuff and should focus on his next mission. Maggie told him she's no warrior. She's just here to keep him safe. Mustering up some guts, Will said, "Ever since I saw you, I've felt drawn to you. I can't stop thinking about you." He finally told her he loved her. But then James walked in, asking what they were up to. Maggie said she was just chatting with Will while waiting for him. When she left, Will got so mad he ran off to find Leon. He said, "I don't think I can save the world. I can't even talk to girls. How am I supposed to save anything?" Leon shot back, "You're the seeker, dude. You can do whatever you want." He added, "You've got your whole life to chase girls, kid. Focus on the job now, or there won't be a world left." Will stormed out of the hall, so ticked off that the trees nearby caught fire. When Miss Graythorne saw, she chewed out Leon. "Why didn't you hear him out? He's just a kid, you know." Soon Gwen chased after Will and caught up at the palace. She asked if he was okay and he said, "I'm good, don't worry." But then he glanced at the clouds and knew the third sign was coming. He grabbed Gwen's hand, time-traveled to a village where people were fighting, and they dodged soldiers until he spotted a sign hidden in a shield. He and Gwen chased the soldier with it and ended up on a boat. Will picked up the shield, but a huge guy grabbed him, threw him in the water, and was about to attack when he noticed Will's watch. In the end, the guy traded the shield for the watch. Will snagged the third sign and time-traveled home with Gwen. He told her not to tell anyone what happened, but Leon scolded him for using his powers. Leon said he should save them for the big fight ahead. Later, Leon apologized for being harsh and swore he'd protect him from now on. When Will got home, Max was waiting. Max said he'd stick around for a few more weeks, but Will ignored him. Then Max grabbed him by the collar, talking in a creepy voice. Turns out the writer was controlling him. Right then, Will sensed the fourth sign, so he time-traveled with Max to some place. Max attacked him, threatening to kill him unless he spilled about the signs. Will said he knew Max dropped out of college after flunking exams. He told him the family wouldn't care about that and urged him to shake off his fears so the writer couldn't control him. When that didn't work, Will knocked him out with a punch. He grabbed the fourth sign and brought Max back home. When Max woke up, Will said he'd just fallen and passed out. Next morning, they saw a snowstorm had buried the whole town, messing up traffic, water, and power. Miss Graythorne invited John and the family to stay at the palace to ride out the storm. Meanwhile, it came out that Maggie was working with the writer. She was a witch helping him to stay young forever. The writer told her Will had 4 signs now, and she needed to steal them fast. Leon told Will to meet at the Great Hall after getting the 5th sign. But Will wasn't into it, because even if he got the 5th, he still didn't know what the 6th was. Still, Leon was sure Will would take down the writer and save the world from darkness. Soon, Maggie met Will at the palace and demanded the signs. He was about to hand one over when he spotted the 5th sign and risked everything to grab it. After that, he flat out refused to give her anything. Since Maggie couldn't get the signs, the writer ditched their deal, and she turned into an old lady and drowned in the river. Meanwhile, the writer's powers were through the roof, and he was stirring up trouble in town. On the flip side, Will made it to the Great Hall with the other warriors. The rule there was the writer couldn't come in uninvited. Suddenly, they heard Will's dad outside, begging them to open the door. The warriors held him back. But then Gwen's voice said one of their brothers was hurt bad. When Will heard Mary crying for help, he got emotional and flung the door open. Turns out, it was the writer faking their voices to trick him. As soon as he got in, his dark energy swallowed all the light. The warriors tried to fight him, but he was too strong and took them all out, shoving them into darkness. Now it was just him and Will. He attacked Will, asking where his family and friends were when he needed them. Finally, the writer said, "You're just a kid. Don't even think about saving the world." Then he showed Will a magic orb with his twin brother Tom trapped inside. That's when it hit. The writer kidnapped Tom 14 years ago, thinking he was the seeker. Now, Ryder threw the orb into the water of the Great Hall. Will tried to find his brother, but it was very dark there. Finally, Ryder also threw Will into the dark cloud and left the Great Hall. Now he set out to spread darkness and take over the entire world. Meanwhile, upon entering the dark cloud, Will remembered everything about the 6th sign, that it cannot hide from him. Then Will realized that he himself was the final sign. Finally, all his powers awakened at once, so that Ryder's darkness couldn't stop him. Then, with the magical orb in his hand, Will emerged from the Great Hall. Using his powers, he trapped Ryder and his darkness inside the orb and threw it into a river. The moment he did this, the entire city lit up with light, and Will's twin brother Tom was freed and returned. Finally, after being separated for so many years, the 2 brothers reunited. In the end, both Will and Tom arrived home, and their whole family was overjoyed to have Tom back. If you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel.